Okay, 20 present. The position of Patrick Voigt is open at this time, so we have, of those attending, 20 present. Okay. Presentation of the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda. There is a motion by Supervisor Norton, second by Supervisor Shaw. Any questions regarding the agenda? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approval signify by aye. Opposed, that carries. After our approval here, we will have Dr. Kristen Rainey from the Northeast Wisconsin Technical College do her presentation to us. So, Doctor, you're welcome to come up to the front and tell us all the good things the technical school is doing and how we can take advantage of those.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. It is absolutely a delight to be with you all this morning. It is an honor to have a few minutes of your time to share a little bit about the great things NWTC is doing across the district, but specifically here in Door County. I just want to share that the Door County, the board member from NWTC who represents Door County, Jerry, my gosh, I'm blanking on your name. Work, I know your name, and he's going to look at me like, what have you done? Is here, and I have a few staff members with me as well. So it's just really great to be here. My name is Kristen Rainey. I am just finishing my second year as president of NWTC. This is the fourth college I've had the pleasure of working at, and by far the best and my favorite. And part of what makes me so happy to serve as president is a couple of things. One, I love what technical colleges do. I fell in love with technical colleges when I started my career over 20 years ago, and that is that we really change students' lives by giving access to educational programming that leads to good jobs right in their home areas. And that is pretty amazing. And the second thing that I really love about it is I think the Wisconsin Tech College system as a whole is the best system in the country. I started here, but I worked in Minnesota, I worked briefly in Iowa, and I would take this system any day. And one of the things that I love most about it is how we're designed to function. And that is that we take programs, the programs that we offer are aligned directly with the employer needs of the districts we serve. So in that regard, we don't make up programs because we think they're fun to offer, we think they'd be interesting to offer. We make programs and design programs looking at job data. NWTC serves all or part of 9 counties in Northeast Wisconsin, and we look at those counties and we look at the job markets and we listen to our employers. And based on that, we make sure that the programs we offer lead to jobs where students can go to work right here in Northeast Wisconsin. And in fact, I need to get the statistics because I can never just rattle them off. Our graduates, hold on here, of our 2023 graduates, 93% were working full-time within 6 months of graduation. And 62% work in the district in Northeast Wisconsin. And 97% indicate that they are satisfied or very satisfied with their training. And our median annual salary for entry-level positions is just under $53,000. So we really pay attention to the programs we offer. We really pay attention to making sure that our students have access to the programs that we provide. And we track their progress, and we measure our success based on how well they're doing after graduation. So a couple of the fields, I'll start with this at a very high level, a couple of the areas where we have some of the strongest programming really aligned with the 2 sectors that are very strong in Northeast Wisconsin, manufacturing and healthcare. And we have a number of jobs that lead directly to our advanced manufacturing sector. And the same is true in healthcare. And in fact, NWTC graduates more nurses than any other technical college in the state of Wisconsin. And we offer a pathway of certified nursing that leads to the practical nursing and that leads to a registered nursing degree for those graduates. And that is in fact a program or pathway that we offer right here in Sturgeon Bay. So the full program that we have available at our Sturgeon Bay is that nursing pathway that leads to they can complete the certified nursing and go into practical nursing. And if they want to get that registered nurse degree, they can go right into Green Bay and finish that degree there. So a couple of things that I want to highlight for you about what's happening in Door County and in Sturgeon Bay. And I want to share them with you to kind of show you the range of services and range of partnerships that we have, to give you a sense of our commitment to making sure that as big as we are, we're not just focused on what happens in and around Green Bay. We work really hard to make sure that we are working with local partners, that we are in our local communities, urban or rural, and that we are responsive to the needs of those communities. And that means paying attention to how things change. So a couple of things that I want to highlight for you. One area of particular focus for NWTC is partnering with our K-12 districts, because we believe one of the best ways to get students interested in and aware of what NWTC provides for them is to get their attention while they're still in high school. So we do that in a couple of ways. One is we offer partnerships where students can enroll in our college classes. We offer transcripted classes. They can offer or take classes online. And we have actively served more than 1,000 students just last year alone in Sebastopol, Gibraltar, Southern Door, Sturgeon Bay, and Washington Island school districts. And that's a growing number, and that's something that we pay really close attention to. But we also offer access to high school credentials, which is something that the tech college system does really well. And we provide alternative high school credentials, so a GED or an HSED, and we work we provide in-service or in-person and virtual instruction at the Sturgeon Bay campus, but also in the Door County Jail. And we have contracted an alternative high school program with Sturgeon Bay. And that's our way of really making sure that sometimes high school doesn't work out for students. But we want to make sure that they still have access to getting that high school credential so that they can continue on in college level classes after they get that. We partner very closely with Door County Medical Center, and they hire our graduates, certainly both our registered nurses and our practical nurses. They also hire students who graduate from our allied health programs. So we have radiography, and we have medical lab technician, and we have these other health programs, not just nursing, that our healthcare providers consistently look for graduates to fill these jobs. And that gets really hard, especially in our rural communities. And so we work really closely to make sure that our graduates know where those job opportunities are for them after graduation. We have a unique program that we have been offering in conjunction with Door County Medical, and it's something like an apprenticeship program, if you will, where people who are working at the Door County Medical Center have access to getting trained and getting skilled in healthcare positions that they're not already in. And that's a unique offering that we have just in with Door County Medical, and we've served about 8 to 10 employees that they have and are actively working with to getting them up skills to move into different healthcare positions. We work very closely with our industry partners and the employers in the area. We work directly with Fincantieri and Bay Ship, and we have an ongoing program where we skill and upskill their incoming employees to get them ready to go to work. Another one, we work with HATCO. We've done leadership and lean training. We've worked with the vice presidents of DC EDC Workforce Committee. And we have a variety of customized welding and other training that we do to meet the needs of area employers, excuse me. We recently, over the last year, in response to some feedback that we had with some of the area employers, began to offer micro-credentials at the Sturgeon Bay campus for individuals to get skilled in welding. And one of the things we heard were there are a lot of employers working really hard to get employees who could weld. And we couldn't sustain a full welding program here. We just couldn't get the enrollment to a steady level. So we worked with them to explore other ways to get students exposed to welding, to get some entry-level skills so that they could be hired and go to work. And so that is one of the things that we began to offer over the last year. So we have micro-credentials, and we have blueprint reading, we have stick welding, pulse aluminum welding, and TIG welding all being offered. And some of you may have seen over the last year some advertisements for something called a welding rodeo. And we had received a federal naval grant to offer events in both Marinette and Sturgeon Bay to open our doors to community members, to help them get exposed to welding, to see what kinds of careers are available, to see what it might take for them to actually try their hand at welding. And that we're very successful, but the idea is that we're trying to create a stronger pipeline to get people interested in and to see what jobs may be available in welding. And last but not least, we've worked very closely, our public safety teams have worked very closely with local fire departments to identify and provide certification training in the areas of EMT. We've got classes scheduled to run, and then entry-level driver operator that will run this fall. So I'm going to stop there because I want to have some time this morning for you to ask any questions that you may have of me about things that are happening at our college, things that are happening in general at the college, but certainly here in Sturgeon Bay or Door County as a whole. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, if there's any questions, please go ahead. Elizabeth?
For students who choose to disclose a learning or academic disability, what supports or menu of supports do you offer them here in Sturgeon Bay?
In Sturgeon Bay, so we have for our students, so Sturgeon Bay and Marinette are two campuses beyond Green Bay that are comprehensive campuses. So we have full range of support services for our students at those campuses. And so that includes students, they have some sort of learning or physical disability, and they need assistance to get accommodation so that they're successful in their classes. We have a Department of Disability Services. We have support services that include right here in Sturgeon Bay. And we work with them to, and we look at what program and area of study they're going into. We look at what challenges they may have, and then we develop a plan of support for them so that when they can enter into the classroom and we figure out ways to make that class accessible for them so that they can engage fully as a student and find success.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Has TC made any efforts to reach out to CISA 7 to try and form some sort of a partnership on the youth apprenticeship program? Youth apprenticeship program in both Door County is hugely successful. We heard at our last DCEDC meeting, I think it was nearing 200 kids in the Door County area, students that juniors and seniors that are enrolled in the program, and employers are enjoying that. But it seems like a link between NWTC and CISA 7 would make a lot of sense. Years ago, it almost seemed as though they were repelling each other. But have you made any attempts to try to partner with them? Because I think that education piece that NWTC could provide in partnership with these youth apprentice programs would be very valuable. And in particular, we heard a success story of a student who was interested in the electrical program and worked with a local electrical contractor for 2 years and enrolled several thousand hours toward his journeyman license, and ended up, I think at 20, 21 years old, he's going to end up writing his state license at that young age because of the hours that he accumulated. So is there anything going on between those two groups that are trying to help each other?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm going to look at Scott to see if he has anything specific to say about youth apprenticeship. He's an associate vice president. But here's what I will say is your question about the partnership, like with the CISA 7, right? And who's working on youth apprenticeships, which are wonderful. We work very closely. We have an associate dean or director who over apprenticeships too. We work very closely with like our unions to say, you know, if we can start, and we offer 1 year perhaps of a maybe diploma, and then they leave us and they continue their work towards a journeyman with our unions, and we work closely there. And so if Scott wants to come on up and say something specific about youth apprentices, I will. But what I will say is that at NWTC, our priority is, to your point about potential overlap or maybe duplication of efforts, we're working very hard to make sure we aren't doing that. It is harder and harder to reach high school students, to talk to them about apprenticeships, to talk to them about NWTC, to help them understand the value of a post-secondary credential or an apprenticeship can bring to them. And so we've made a commitment to work very hard with agencies like CISA to make sure that we are giving clear messages to students and to their parents about what the opportunities are, and to find ways to better collaborate so that we're not duplicating efforts, that we're working more in partnership and promoting what those apprenticeship opportunities are and how they may or may not lead directly to NWTC. So Scott, if you have anything specific to say about youth apprenticeships, this is Scott Anderson. He's actually originally from Sister Bay, but he's Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs.
Thank you, Dr. Rainey, and thank you for, local boy. In terms of youth apprentice, that's a great pathway for us, and I will go back and check out exactly what we have going on with CISA 7 in terms of youth apprentice. But I did want to add a couple areas of apprenticeship that we are actively adding that are outside of your traditional apprenticeships in the trades areas. One is with early childhood education. There is throughout our district, really what is a crisis with early childhood education and childcare workers. So people can be engaged within the workforce. So we are engaging in an apprenticeship model within early childhood education, and we are also engaging in new apprenticeship models within our healthcare pathway. So two that we are actively working on right now are medical assistant and surgical technology that we are actively looking to engage with an apprenticeship model with those to help infuse the workforce. So that's a little bit of an update with overall apprenticeship.
And I just a
Yeah.
quick second question. I would really encourage you to work with CISA 7 because they got it going. I mean, that youth apprenticeship program is blowing up. We've seen it start with 10 or 12 students, 4 or 5 years ago, and there's a lot of success there. The other question is, what's the status of your diesel mechanic program in Sturgeon Bay, which kind of was a flagship program at one point? Is it active or is it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I actually meant to mention that earlier. So we just recently made the decision to move our diesel program to Green Bay, and the reason was only enrollment. We saw a significant decrease in the pipeline of students enrolling here at the Sturgeon Bay campus in that program. And in fact, when we looked into it, the students largely were coming from outside of Door County and coming up here because this is where it was offered. So some of you may or may not know, in Luxembourg Casco, we have the ANAPI diesel program, where students could get the first year of a 2-year diesel program while they're still in high school. And which is it's an excellent model of a partnership between NWTC and a K-12. And so they can continue that second year, but they're going to have to go to Green Bay. It was a very difficult decision to make, and it wasn't one that we took lightly. And there's a balance that we have to have with offering academic programs. Usually the question becomes both here in Marinette, where you have smaller communities And as our high school populations continue to get smaller, it is harder to have a pipeline of sustained enrolled students. And so after a careful analysis, our commitment was to offer the program, but we couldn't offer it in Green Bay and Sturgeon Bay. We just couldn't sustain it financially, and we didn't have the enrollment demand. So we have worked really hard to do that, to get the students, and they'll continue there. Yeah, go ahead.
Was there always a diesel mechanic program in Green Bay, or did you move it
Do we,
there? I don't remember it being there before.
There was a diesel mechanic program in Green Bay and then the heavy equipment diesel program. So now with the lab set up the way we have, we're offering them now in the one lab in Green Bay.
Right, thank you.
So there were
Yeah.
2 tracks of diesel.
that's what it was. Thank you.
Vinnie?
I have just 2 parts, and thank you for the
Yeah.
presentation, are you seeing any trending in Door County? It feels that there's a lack of plumbing technicians, electricians, that kind of work. So are you seeing many students being interested in that? And then what's the availability or the status of the Sister Bay campus and how you've seen, is that for, like, is there age demographics you're seeing mostly engage with that? Or how is that facility kind of functioning in Northern Door?
Yeah.
Like an update on that.
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Excellent question. So let me start with your first one. So one of the things that we do, I think, very, very well as a college is we listen very carefully to our local communities. So we listen to our employers. We listen very closely not only to what their employment needs are, but we listen to what some of their challenges are. And for example, one of the things, I was talking to a manufacturer recently, and he said, you know, I can hire the employees for the most part that I need. And I get your welders, I've got a great pipeline, and they're ready to go. They're ready to come to work here. My bigger problem is keeping them. My bigger problem is making sure that they stay not just for 2 years, but that I can keep them for the long haul, because I'm looking at my trajectory over the next 10 years, and I'm paying attention to who's, you know, the demographic shifts in Northeast Wisconsin, and I'm worried I'm not going to have a strong enough pipeline. So I'm paying attention to figure out how am I going to keep the people I get once I get them here. So we listen very closely. And one of the things we hear, particularly in the Door County area, but some of our other rural areas as well, is that it is particularly hard to get some of the skilled technicians to move and stay in some of the smaller communities. So one of the questions that we're asking ourselves is, how can we partner differently to help with that? In our strategic plan this last year, we made a focus on our rural communities a priority, so that we are going to intentionally, we have a small team who is going to be working in and around Door County and Kewaunee, and asking some of the same questions you just did, which is, gosh, if we have the need for good jobs, these skilled laborers, and we have a need for them, and we're not getting a pipeline of people to come in and apply for these jobs. The college, we're asking is, how might we help with that? How might we help raise awareness? How might we help get more people interested and direct talent this way? So we will continue that effort, and we will continue to focus on that, because we think we can be a bridge to not only delivering graduates who are ready to go to work, but paying attention to the needs of the community and bringing those needs and talking to prospective students and our future graduates about opportunities for them after graduation. So your question about Sister Bay, so thank you for that. One of the things that, there's a couple of things that happen at Sister Bay and Sturgeon Bay that are unique, and that is we have commercial kitchens that are available. And so these are available, people can rent space and rent time, and they can come in and use our kitchens. And Sister Bay is one of those areas, and that is one of a really sought after service that we provide. Because we are a licensed commercial kitchen, that means individuals, they may be smaller, they may have their own business, of whatever it might be, they can have their food and supplies delivered to our commercial kitchen. And then they can schedule time to go in and prep and bake or cook and do the things that they need to do in that kitchen. And so we also have one in Sturgeon Bay. So we have in Sister Bay, we have 7 current people that are processing there. We have 2 pending licensures and we have 1 opening, but we have a waiting list for that. So right now we have a food truck, we have 2 catering firms, we have a jerk sauce business, a sauces and jam business. We have another market business that focuses on jams and salsa and almond cakes. We have a culinary creation business and a pending egg roll business and a pending baker. And in Sturgeon Bay, we have a food truck, pasta maker, catering firm, bagel company, blended spice business, a candy maker, 2 bakers, and a gourmet picnic business. So we actually have recently done some restructuring. And so we have 1 manager over the specialty kitchens, and we have 1 in Aurora as well. So we're really looking at, it's a unique service we provide, but to these individuals, it's a steady place where they can come and fulfill their kind of entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. The other thing that's unique about Sturgeon Bay and Sister Bay is the Learning and Retirement program that is offered that has over 400 members in it. I believe in one semester there were over 100 different offerings between the Sturgeon Bay and in Sister Bay. And so that's another way of partnering with the community, making sure that our spaces are used, but people are invited in, community members are invited in to have different opportunities to both learn and also engage on our campuses. So great question. Thank you for that.
Okay, Nissa?
Thank you. I also kind of have a 2-parter, just like everybody else. My first part is more just a comment of, I'm glad that high school classes are still taught. Using one of my friends as an example, in high school, when he started his senior year, he was still sophomore status. Conventional school did not really work for him. When he hit 18, he dropped out, and people will automatically think the story of, well, that's it. He actually enrolled in NWTC and graduated high school 2 months before his class did. So he finished school caught up 2 years in about 6 months.
Wow.
So the guy was still very, very bright. It just, that was not going to school like everyone else was not going to work for him in particular. So I appreciate that that still happens.
Mhm.
My actual question is, are any foreign languages taught, like Spanish, French, ESL, anything like that?
Yep, we have ESL. It's actually a very strong part of what the WTCS offers. It's in the state statute. And so both ESL classes and adult basic education, the HSED programs, are offered through the Wisconsin Technical College system. And so we offer those and have seen very strong enrollment in those over the years. I started my administrative career overseeing those programs, and they can be a great bridge to helping people master English. And we often pair them with a number of things, but sometimes we have some unique programs in Green Bay where students can actually get their high school equivalency, and they start by taking some English classes, and then they can complete a certificate in like industrial maintenance. And so and when they finish that, they now have a credential to go to work and a strong enough English to be employed. And so that is something that we offer, and we're able to offer that district-wide for our students.
Anything for Spanish
John,
or
do we
anything
have-
like that?
Do we offer Spanish? We don't.
Okay.
No, we don't. I didn't think we did, but no, we don't.
Also, I guess I have a third thing.
Okay.
I mentioned it last time that there was a presentation and Jerry spoke, and I said, I appreciate that, there's a pathway for like special ed kids in high school to go to NWTC and take classes. Cause at that time, my son was a senior, I think. It was a few years ago. So, I appreciate that it's been mentioned before that it's a possibility for kids who may not have plans once they leave the building for their high school to actually go on to school if they want to.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I have on my whiteboard in my office something that I believe very strongly, and I reference it a lot, but it is it says, I believe all students can learn under the right conditions. And I believe that one of the greatest things that NWTC does is we accept every student. We accept all students, and we ask ourselves, how can we help the student be successful? Now, they may go into different paths. Some might complete a certificate, some might complete a transfer program and go on to get a bachelor's degree. We have people who go on to become doctors. We do it all. But we are really good at making our services meet the needs of our students, because I believe that they can be successful and there is a career path for them. And our employers need us to do that. They fight really hard to get and keep a workforce, and we want to continue to be a partner with that. So thank you.
Thanks.
Mhm. Okay, Mr. Anikel.
Good morning. I'm going to start with a question. In the construction trades world, what, if any, classes, CEU classes, educational classes, preparation classes are actually offered inside the campuses inside the county of Door?
I am trying to, in terms of actual construction.
Well, the trades,
The
all four
trades.
trades.
Yeah, well, so couple of things to keep in mind. So there's two ways that we work with employers. One is we offer academic programs, so traditional credit programs. And they may be a certificate or a 1-year like technical diploma, or they may be a 2-year diploma, right? So that's one way that we can meet the needs. And we have the skilled trades. We've got HVAC, we've got welding, we've got CNC, we've got electromechanical, we've got industrial maintenance. We have a whole variety of things that lead, quite honestly, to really strong wages for entry-level people. And the other thing that we do is we have a division called, it's called CTED, it's Corporate Training and Economic Development. And that team works across our district to provide any range of training related to customized training. So if an employer says, gosh, I have a group of employees that I need to introduce to a new skill set, can you come to my area of employment? Can you deliver training that's going to get them ready to go from A to B? But we can also do other short-term and customized trainings that within a community, within an area to meet a specific need. And we do that across the board. We served over 7,500 people in the district just last year alone in what non-credit offerings. We also have rolled out something, and I mentioned it earlier, micro-credentials. These are very focused areas of specialty that can get people introduced to an area, a field that may be enough for them to go to work, but it may be something that they say, I want to continue on at the college and go into a 9-month or 1-year technical program. But what we do is we try to work really hard to ask ourselves, where is there a need? And then how do we deliver either training or a pathway to an academic program? If you want to enroll in something, here's how you do that. And that's what we look at.
Okay, but what my question was in the construction world, new construction, remodeling, electrical HVAC, plumbing, construction, what classes are actually offered at a campus inside the county of Door?
Those programs are offered in Green Bay.
Okay.
So, yep.
So that's my
Yep,
point.
okay.
I've been in the trades for most of my life.
Yep.
Some way, shape, or form. It's not easy to get out of Door County. I would say a good half of the current tradespeople living here have at least an hour and a half drive to Green Bay. Marinette doesn't count. 15 miles away from Sister Bay, Egg Harbor, but doesn't really count. So what I was getting at is, back in my much younger years, I tried working with NWTC multiple times to get classes for all the beginner electricians. This is before originally we only had the journeyman and the master electrician. Happens to be the trade I'm most familiar with. And I had at that time, the class required, the 26-week course I took in Green Bay, which was an hour and 15, hour and a half drive for me one way. Thank God I took up 3 other individuals living in Door County. It was like 23, forgive me, I don't have the right numbers, but it was like 23 individuals. 2 separate times, the company I worked for was basically a guaranteed 23 that would take the class if offered at Sturgeon Bay. And we were turned down both times. Now, that was a long time ago. I happen to know that there are individuals right now that would love to get their journeymans, would love to get their masters in a much more easier pattern. And I feel there's enough that would actually have the occasional ability to have a course offered here in Sturgeon Bay. In my previous world, it was very difficult to get people to leave the county because of timing.
Mhm.
How do you work 8 hours, 10 hours a day and have 3 hours worth of driving and 2 to 4 hours worth of class? So you keep mentioning employees or employers.
Mhm.
I recognize that, but ultimately the employers, there isn't a single employer here that has more than 8 people actually in their trade working for them.
Mhm.
But there's far more than that actually working here in any given trade that is living here and
Mhm.
would like to get additional training. I am aware of the union classes.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit anybody here in Door County because there isn't the one union electrical shop that we had here, residential, retired and moved to California. This is a bit of nagging, but there is a tremendous amount of talented here. Touching on Supervisor Thay's statement, he's talking about people coming out of high school. I'm talking about people actually in the trades that need that training in order to continue their statutory obligations of licensing.
Mhm.
I really wish there was an effort in every one of the trades to offer something here at Sturgeon Bay.
So thank you for that. And you're touching on, I appreciate the comments. I really do. One of the things I mentioned earlier of our kind of renewed commitment to really paying attention to, I'm saying rural, but areas where the population isn't, if you break it down by demographic, may not be as big as some other areas. One of the things that we are in the midst of planning right now is a facilitated session at our Sturgeon Bay campus to invite the community in to hold listening sessions about unmet needs, to really listen for, okay, yep, we know we're in K-12s, we know there's a lot of trainings that we are doing. What else is a need for employees to continue on with additional certifications and trainings needs that they have? And you're right, high school is one population. We work really hard with currently employed individuals. 65%, well, I should say it's close to 80% of our students are part-time. More than 65% of our students are working more than 20 hours a week. So they are doing exactly what you just said. They are juggling full schedules. And then if they have to drive on top of that, their ability to attend trainings that are a long ways away becomes really difficult to do. It doesn't matter how committed you are. There's only so much time in your day and in your work week. So I appreciate your comments. I would actually like to take your name if that is possible. And I see that. I want to make sure I get it. I don't want to leave without it. And have some folks from my team follow up with you to make sure that when we do that listening session that you are personally invited. But I would also be happy to have a conversation with you beyond this to learn more about the specific examples you're giving to see if there's different ways that we can start responding to those right now.
If you can undo the stigma that NWTC has grown in this county towards the trades, that's going to be the difficult part. And when you offer training at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it doesn't exactly work in the middle of summertime. There are people that are not coming out of high school that are 25, 35. People that I know are excellent electricians, but just never have a reason to go beyond journeyman at the most because of the timing issues. HVAC, plumbing, doesn't matter.
Yep.
And I've been around your Green Bay campus and the electrical class that you have. It's fine, but it is driven around the union. It is, and it's supported by the union, so that's one reason. I know people have tried and they can't get in because they're not part of a union shop. So.
Yeah. Your email will be on the website?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd make a couple comments, having attended a couple of their sessions, introducing many of us to the efforts and programs at NWTC, that they do work with a lot of employers. They work with the high schools. You collaborate with UWGB on the transfer of credits. So it lets you start with that initial degree and move forward if you choose to do so. You've already mentioned the childcare education, which is important to Door County, a lot of rural areas. Door County Medical Center, the emergency services, I know they get their training. So those are all things you mentioned. One that you didn't say anything about, and it was in one of your friends of the NWTC newsletter, is one of your graduates of the Substance Abuse Counselor Education and Human Service Programs, and her effort to help start a Veterans First Village in Green Bay. I thought that was something that we've worked with a little bit, trying to get a sober living facility here, and we need employees in that health and human service area that we're always struggling to fill positions. So how much of an emphasis is there at TC in those areas?
Yeah, thank you for that. One of the things that our team does is when we have a program and we're looking at, what skills do graduates need to go to work? We want to make sure we're delivering the skills so that they're ready to be a good employee. But we're also trying to figure out where are the community needs. In some of our social service areas in particular, so substance abuse, sometimes in our public safety area, education, those are areas where there's a strong community need for people to be willing to move to some of these areas and then go to work, because the community will be better served when they've got people that are coming there. So I appreciate you raising that. I can't speak specifically to something that we're doing right now to address that particular need, but I think the program we have is certainly in position to help with that. And as you said, the graduate we have who that was highlighted linked her program with a community need and has really been spotlighted on the work that she does for veterans. So
Okay,
thank you for that.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you so much for coming to
Thank
Door
you for
County.
having me. It's been a pleasure. I really do appreciate it. Excellent questions. And I will be in touch with you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, we'll go back to our agenda. Correspondence. There was a letter from the Town of Gibraltar resolution. Christine Reed's email, Files email, and there was also one that was not included, was a email from Sue Powers highlighting some of the situations at Health and Human Services. I believe each of us received those. Okay, we'll go on to public comment. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to make a comment at this time? Please state your name and address, and then we have a 3-minute.
Paul Kwiatkowski. I live at 9441 Gibraltar Woods Court in Fish Creek. And I'd like to address an issue that came up in the last meeting. I'm a retired law enforcement officer of 26 years. In the course of my career, I investigated nearly 240 child sex abuse cases. The opposition to Pride is not about bigotry or hatred. The opposition we're seeing to Pride is about the sexualization of our children. What Pride started out as versus what it is now is two very different things. Pride now targets children in their bathrooms, their locker rooms, and their sports teams, specifically the young girls. It targets children in schools and libraries. The sexualization of our children is wrong, and local governments like this should not be endorsing it or sponsoring it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Come forward and state your name and address, please.
Thank you. Travis Tyson, I'm the administrator for our town of Gibraltar. Address is 6085 Governor's Woods Trail. Number 12 on today's agenda. When airports acquire land to meet BOA requirements, keeping historical data on all parcels purchased by the airports is necessary. The proposed language works to view the airport in its entirety rather than each parcel, keeping parcels individual. I applaud Door County zoning staff and the amended language change. This change will streamline airport zoning reviews, saving both airport staff and Door County zoning staff time. Additionally, this will help reduce redundancies. As Ephraim Gibraltar Airport Manager, I support this language change and ask you do as well. Thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else from the public that wish to make a comment? Again, state your name and address, please.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Coates. My address is 2986 Lake Forest Park Road here in Sturgeon Bay. I'd like to thank the board for voting against Open Doors Pride Proclamation. This affects my family. 5 years ago, my very girly girl granddaughter decided she was a gay boy. Her teachers all affirmed this, told her it was wonderful. What they didn't do was they didn't tell any of her family, her mother, father, myself, my husband. We found out through another parent after she had cut off her beautiful long hair and started wearing baggy sweatshirts instead of dresses. We told her, you know, we love you. You're a girl. This is, excuse me. We didn't affirm her. And we told her, you need to wait until you're 18 years old before starting taking dangerous drugs or cutting off body parts. Thank God she agreed to wait until she was 18. She is now graduating. She just graduated. She's a beautiful, healthy, and intact young woman. This is a phase. It's a social contagion. We need to do better to protect our children. If we would have affirmed her, she now would be on drugs, possibly mutilated. Thank you again for not passing this proclamation.
Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Peter, 11 North 17th Drive in Sturgeon Bay. On June 9th of this year, the town of Sturgeon Bay agreed to add to their agenda a Pride Proclamation request from Open Door Pride. They were actually requested to come and talk to the town board. Although the town of Sturgeon Bay does not provide proclamations, the town board still agreed and even encouraged the nonprofit group to come speak about their proclamation request and about the importance that the proclamation has on our community. Again, they don't, the town of Sturgeon Bay does not offer proclamations, but they still encourage the group to speak because that is what real leaders do. They take the time to listen. Now, more than ever, it is time for us to be thinking about how we can come together, how we can be building longer tables and fewer walls. When the world around us seems like it's falling apart and the future is incredibly uncertain, one thing that makes us safer is having a strong community. And a strong community operates by allowing space for listening and discussing viewpoints that you may not necessarily agree with. There is no downside to allowing your neighbors the space to discuss a topic that is undeniably important to so many people in this county and across this country. The worst case scenario is that you walk away with the same opinion that you had coming in. So I'm not here today to convince you to support a marginalized group, one that continues to face mounting persecution and targeted threats from both citizens and government, but to remind you all that as elected representatives, your primary responsibility is not to a budget, it's not to culture war issues, it's not to personal ideologies, but it's to our community and the people in it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the public that wishes to make a comment at this time?
My name is Jesse Simcox. I live at 122 Highway 42, Gills Rock. Many of you may know me as part of the sober living community. I help counsel incarcerated LGBT people who struggle with alcohol and drug addiction. I also serve as the Midwest Director of Gays Against Groomers. We're a coalition of gay, lesbians, and some trans people, like actual people who acknowledge they have a mental disability that for whatever reason makes them think that they're born in the wrong body, but they don't want to force it on other people, and most certainly do not want to target children like members of Open Door Pride. Members of the board, I want to thank you for staying neutral in the 12-8 decision. This stuff has no business in county government. Adults, you can do whatever you want. You can display whatever you want on your own private property. You can put up the pedophilic baby blue and little girl pink transgender flags on your own property, but just leave it out of the government. Stay neutral. I'm not here to condemn anyone for voting for or against it. I'm just saying there's a lot of people that probably don't understand. This movement targets emotionally weak, woke, white, heterosexual women. It's an oppressed versus oppressor situation where parents who want their kids to have special rights and privileges because they're not a different race can reinvent oppression. They can reinvent victimization. Several underage girls at the Sevastopol School District were sold a heartbreaking lie by adult members of Open Door Pride that the transgender lifestyle would erase their pain and anxiety and depression forever. They were given very pornographic books by Open Door Pride. Open Door Pride even wrote about it in the county pulse, how they're giving inclusive LGBTQ plus material to children. So you don't have to believe me, just believe them. Children were instructed how to draw penises on girls, vaginas on boys, learn about all sorts of sexual stuff. There's a word search in this book where kids were learning about fisting. I don't know if you know what that was, but I had to Google it and I did not like that. These are kids. You may think that Open Door Pride is a bunch of glitter and rainbows and adults just being adults. They're targeting our kids. I'm embarrassed as a gay man to say this. It's just not right. Also, Open Door Pride put up on Memorial Day, instead of thanking our veterans, they put out a declaration of Pansexual Day. Now, parents were absolutely confused as to why their kids at Gibraltar were identifying as pansexual or pansgender. Open Door Pride started a gender and sexuality club at the schools, and children were told to lie to their parents about their whereabouts and their activities, saying that they were staying after school for extracurricular help or tutoring when they were really attending a sex club. And some of the material that was given to the children was very disturbing. This is a book about a transgender girl that wants to be a boy, and she and her brother are tasting their own vagina fluid. This book also tells kids how to hook up on adult sex apps like Grindr and Tinder and avoid showing proper like age verification.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Also, if you think that this group is targeting teenagers, it targets young children. In the Sevastopol School District, little kids were taught about the gender unicorn, where they can pick their sexual identity, pick all different kinds of genders, and keep secrets with their parents. Open Door Pride also gave out pronoun pins to kids at the school district where they can identify as they, them, Zer, she, they, and he, they. So I just want to say thank you for staying neutral. I don't think you see the underbelly of this beast. You just see glitter and rainbows, and you don't see what's really going on, because they target people and say that if you speak out against this, you're spreading hate and that you're against inclusivity. Again, I just want to reiterate, we don't care what adults do, but this group is in our communities targeting children.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the public that would like to make a comment?
Hello, I'm Sammy Garzanagel. I live at 2960 Settlement Road in Sturgeon Bay. I'm from Gays Against Groomers, and I want to thank you for downvoting the Pride Month proclamation. A month is not a right, it's a month. And we've gotten confused a lot about rights and privileges in this country. And we've got our hard-won rights. Every single American has the same rights now. And we are so blessed in this country. We have so much, but we still want more. And we're humans, of course we do. We We all want a better, more richer, fuller life, but we have our rights. Everything else is privileges. Everything else is earned or, gathered or given. And we all have the same protections, laws, rules, everything we wanted, we have. We protested, marched, lobbied, we've been harassed, imprisoned, killed for these rights to be an equal American. We don't need a month to signify that we are a whole American now. There's a quote from Morgan Freeman that I like. You're going to relegate my history to a month. We don't need a month. We have it all year. We're not just who we are in June. We're Americans all year long. We're gay all year long. We fought so we don't have to separate ourselves. We fought for equality to be treated like everyone else. And instead of pride being a celebration now, it's a form of bullying, coercion, and forced speech. Instead of it being a celebration of winning our rights, it's become more of a de-evolution into debauchery. What was once a real source of pride has brought me embarrassment and not wanting to join in. I have my son, and I would never bring him to the pride festivals of today because I can't trust that there won't be inappropriate sexual attire, products, or images for his age range. He's a sweet 10-year-old boy with cognitive delays. He cannot always see people that have ill intent because he truly believes that people do good in the world and want the best for him. And unfortunately, that is the problem because people don't always have his best interests at heart and believe things. If enough people tell him, he'll believe it. And that's why I'm skeptical of this new pride targeting children with the bright colors, the glitter, and the over-the-top cartoonish actions. I'm skeptical of adults going up to a child and talking about sexual concepts or identity issues. I want my child to have pride in himself as himself. So thank you for choosing sanity.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that would like to make a public comment?
Hi, Michelle Roma from 1014 Superior Street. I would just like to encourage the board to fact check any information that they've received tonight. Educating yourself is important. The Trevor Project has some great statistics. Fact check information, and I would caution you to listen to any facts from people who actually are talking about protecting children but have restraining orders from local school districts. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Seeing no indication, we'll go to those online. Again, the same, if they would state their name and address, and we have a 3-minute allotment.
Sure, I'll check for those online. If you'd like to speak online, you can raise your hand and I can give you the floor. And again, you'll have 3 minutes. I'll ask 2 more times if there's anyone who'd like to speak. And then for the final time, is there anyone who would like to speak? There are no hands raised, so I'll defer it back to our chair.
Okay, that would conclude our public comment period. Supervisor's response, if any. Supervisor Thais.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to touch, I don't know if I should touch on here the oral committee reports, but I think what's important in this county board meeting, because it has been very topical, is to talk just for a moment about the situation with the towers and the radios and so on and so forth. It's came through 3 committees. There's been ample discussion. Obviously, you see the resolution in front of us here today from the town of Gibraltar that is asking for the county board not to pass on certain costs. Mr. Engelbert put it on the admin committee meeting, our last admin committee, and we had a healthy debate. So my following comments will be brief, but it's just for those that are not on those committees because it has gained a lot of attention from the public. So first of all, I think it's fairly well concluded that the county is not going to pass on the costs of the radios and the equipment for the fire departments and so on and so forth to these entities. The cost of the hard equipment is going to be included potentially in the budget or the funding that we do in terms of borrowing. Now, again, that's not an absolute end decision, but that's the directive that I think, Ken, you would say came through the admin committee, correct? Yep. The other thing is that there was a a document circulating around that is part of the Gibraltar resolution that they forwarded to us that talked about what costs would, excuse me, turn toward the microphone, what costs could potentially be levied to each township in regard to their fire department, which was very heavily weighed on by all fire departments. So what Ken and his staff has been asked to do, what you see in front of you is, I guess, what I would say and characterize as the full load of costs that potentially could be on a yearly basis for this new tower system, licensing, all the above. We've asked Ken to come back to the committees that are going to be looking at this, which will be public safety, which will be finance, and probably ultimately admin at the end of the day, to give options that, okay, we know what we've got now, but we'd like options in regard to how this could actually be administering that would go from the full boat to nothing to somewhere in between. At the admin committee, it was healthily debated that there needs to be some buy-in at the local level, some way, shape, or form, if it's updates for the equipment or so on and so forth. So we'll continue to listen. But I think it's important that all those that are talking about this right now, including all of our local fire departments, know that this has been addressed and this has been talked about. Final decisions have not been made, but they've been heard. So I don't know, Supervisor Engelbert, do you want to add anything to that?
No,
Or,
I think that was
I don't know
pretty
if
much
this is
the
the
discussion.
appropriate place, but
That was pretty much the discussion at
Yeah.
admin. And yeah, I guess we could have done it on another location, but you are responding to the town of Gibraltar's resolution
yes.
and discussion. Okay, thank you. Any other responses? Okay, if not, we'll move ahead to the approval of the minutes of the May 27th, 2025 County Board meeting. Those are included in the packet. We would need a motion to approve those. A motion by Gauger, a second by Jean Court. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approval signify by aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, the county administrator, monthly report on operational capital projects.
Sure. So the monthly report is in your packet, somewhat standard, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Instead, I'm going to ask Steve to come up. We did provide an update to the finance committee on the budget closeout and the finance committee. And obviously, we felt as well it's important to give an update to the full county board. So we're going to maybe cover that right now. And what we have is we're going to go over two things. One is the handout from Steve that you have at your desk. And the other one will be just a quick PowerPoint. I'm going to, I guess, Steve, just give me a second to get it there. 1 second. I gotta share the screen for the public. 1 second. Okay.
All right. Good morning. On your handout that I handed out on your desk is the summary of the 2024 departmental closeouts. As you can see that we had a very strong finish to 2024, going back to the unassigned fund balance of a little over $5.2 million back. So just a description and a preview of how to read this summary spreadsheet that I gave you. The first column that you'll see excess to from general fund. This is the column that the departments, the amounts that each department is given back to the unassigned fund balance. The middle column is the amount that each department was either under budget or over budget. If you see a positive number, that is the amount that they were under budget, and then a negative, the only one that you're going to see is transportation. They were just the only department that went under or over budget by $20,000. And the last column is the various different, we take out dollar amounts that will go to the various different reserves, such as the vehicle replacement reserves, carry forwards, and other reserves that each department may have. Now, just to give you an example of how to read this, I'll just take the Department 10 County Clerk. So the County Clerk's Department gave back to the unassigned fund balance $24,964 and change. The middle column is that they were under budget by $34,964 and change. And then in the last column, you'll see a negative $10,000. That amount is what was carried forward from 24 into 2025. So that's why that there is a negative amount into that column there. So again, that last column is various taken out from what goes into reserves or carry forwards. So in this particular case, the county clerk had a carry forward that was approved by county board to carry over into 2025. One thing I'd like to just briefly touch about is the 06 General Administration Account department. This department is where our sales tax revenue, our interest revenue, our insurance, such as our liability insurance is housed at. We also look at, if you look at the bottom, you'll see that the Senior Resource Center 23 and then Health and Human Services in total there that they gave back, this is the amount that they gave back of a little over $1,103,131 and change. That amount is already it goes into the general admin department, and that's part of that $3,434,000 that is given back to the unassigned fund balance. Now, the other big reason that is going, why you see a large sum in there is that our interest income revenue, we were over budget by about $2.4 million. And we budgeted in 2024 about $1.2 million for interest revenue. And we generated about $3.4 million. And the reason for that is that we work with a consultant with Ellers, and we know the amount that we have predictable income. So we have investments that we have, like, say, 2 to 5 to 7 years old. So we have predictable income. The hard piece is that when you have liquidity funds, such as our savings account, money markets, and things like that, where the interest rates is changes on a monthly basis, just based on how then you'll see the market goes. That's how our interest rates changes. So for example, just in 2022, our savings account, which is our LGIP account, our interest in 2022 was 0.09%. Again, that was under 1%, 0.09%. So it's hard to predict and hard to probably budget for as to what the market is, because we don't have a crystal ball. We cannot say, oh yeah, it's going to go up and down. Now in 2024, that same account was just, it got up to about 5%. And now, right now, at the end of 24, it was at 4.36%. So it's hard to budget for that. And so we're going to try and change the way we budget on that particular thing. So between the 2.4 and the 1.1 million that the Health and Human Services and the Senior Resource gave back, that's where you come up with that 3.4. So that is the summary, and you'll see that I'm not going to go into each individual department as to why each of them. We do have a summary and a slide here there on that reasoning of why departments gave back so much. As you can see, we did give back a little bit, $5.2 million, and it strengthens Door County's financial position and it provides added flexibility for future needs. As we just, Mr. Thays just brought up about our tower project, and we're going to have to do some bonding for that. What amount of from the unassigned fund balance are we going to contribute to this to lower our bonding amount that we need for that particular project? Now on the second slide, you're going to see here's the summary of why the various key drivers of this positive variances that was given back. First one you're going to see is the unfilled vacancies, staff turnover. That was a big one as to why that was there was so much given back. Operational efficiencies and conservative spending. Departments have done a great job of watching what they're spending, and also the efficiencies. So if there's a project or a certain purchase that they're going to make throughout for the particular year, they'll go out to the vendor and they'll say they'll get a quote, and that's what we'll put in the, into the budget. But as that time comes up in that year, or the project or that purchase comes up, departments have done a very good job of asking that vendor to somehow, if we can negotiate or reduce some of that fees or the amount for that purchase. So that's part of that. The other bullet point is that we have is the grant reimbursements are higher than expected revenues. So for example, on this one, in May of this year of 2025, we got notice from the state for one of the programs in Health and Human Services, the CLTS program. We got back because that there was extra funding that the state had in that particular program, that Door County was going to receive roughly about an extra $100,000. Again, that we weren't planning for it, we weren't expecting for it, and this again in May of 2025. So of course, because that this is a 2024 program, we have to carry that into as part of our closeouts for 2024. We cannot utilize that for 2025. So that is part of what we're seeing, especially with grants. And again, how with way the state works is that because their fiscal year is end of June, so they're reviewing their programs and they're saying, hey, we have this extra funding, and so they'll divvy it up amongst the counties and the state of Wisconsin. The other issue or the variance that we're seeing, departments budgeting too conservative for revenue. So basically that they're generating more revenue than what they're anticipating for budgeting. And the same goes for overestimating of their expenses needed. They're just budgeting more in their expenses than what they're actually spending. And it goes back to that conservative spending. The departments are watching what they are actually spending. And then as I just talked about, the increase in interest revenue. So we're going to be looking at that for possibly future budgeting. Now, the next slide, you'll see again, why this is, the 5.2, is a positive thing for the county. It reinforces our fiscal responsibility. It provides flexibility for future needs. So what particular capital projects we have in the near future that we could help offset some of this cost. And it supports our healthy financial ratio and our bond ratings. Again, because we have a healthy unassigned fund balance, it helps us if we have to go for a bond rating for this particular tower project, that we'll have a good, hopefully get a better lower interest rate on our bonding. So I'm going to stop there before we go into what the actual impact of what's going to do to 2026 and 27. So if there's any questions regarding that.
Supervisor Thies.
Three quick ones that I don't go deep into them. 06 at general admin, you said part of that 3.4 was affected by sales tax. Is that just
it's interest revenue.
No sales tax there?
Well, sales tax is in there, so we budget there, but we were only over by like about 250 something.
Okay, so that's just a true up.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just an over and
Correct,
under.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Secondly, the cadence of this information, is this the right? I mean, when you know that you have this, I mean, this, when were you getting an indication that you were going to have this amount of money in this overage year, which is a good thing. I mean, you mentioned that it was 2.5 over budget. I would prefer to say you had an excess of 2.5 because over budget sounds bad.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, excess. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, we don't know until our auditors come beginning of May. So we wait till probably end of April because we have the closeouts. Because again, we have to wait make sure everything is in. Again, with grants, they're not, we could send in like the end of December. It's not like we get them like right away in January. It takes a few months before we can get them for grant reimbursements, for those particular things. So it takes a few months after. So, I mean, I can't look at this and say, okay, probably till the end of April, beginning of May.
So the answer is you wait for the audit?
Yes.
Okay, so that makes sense to me.
Can I just clarify this one statement though? Because yes and no. I mean, there are the monthly budget reports that the departments are reviewing, right? And they're supposed to be reviewing those quarterly. So obviously, when we're having all the openings, Steve and I and the departments know that they're trending under budget, let's say on their employee expenses. But what we don't know is those larger ticket items in terms of, well, one, obviously sales tax. The other one obviously is also the interest and our payouts on those programs, because those we're not receiving. It depends on when those funds come due and the interest on that. So it's a split answer. So the total picture we don't see until April, May because of the audit. But obviously in terms of operationally, we know how we're trending within the departments much sooner.
Okay.
So
And
I
then,
just want to make sure I clarify that.
Then the last question again is, is this the most, I don't ever remember seeing this or talking about this in the 5 years I've been on the board. Are we talking about this because of how much it is, because it's grown? So if we were to look at a KPI, is this continually grown over the years, or is there anomalies that, you know, I don't need you to go deep into, just your opinion?
Yeah, this is one of the highest that I've seen. We're roughly around 800 to 1 million. I mean,
Yeah.
give or take,
Yeah.
you know.
All right, good, thank
But
you.
yeah, this is high, yeah.
Okay,
Vinny,
Oh.
you have a whole series, 1 second.
Right, okay. So roughly, it's interesting to know, but I'm interested to know too, like a rough percentage of what is the staff turnover and
So in the,
Of that,
what
yeah.
gave back was a little over 1.1 million of staff turnover. Percentage wise, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's overall. I just happened to look that up and it was, so it was given back, meaning that it was unused funds that we projected, that we budgeted for staff was about 1.1 million.
And are we seeing, I mean, this is a hard thing to answer, but I guess I'd be interested in the future to know, like, are we reinvesting in where those gaps happened in this next round of budget? Like if we're understaffed in, like, say, I'm just throwing out examples.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is a department that's understaffed, but Health and Human Services or Land Use Services, because we couldn't fill the positions, it wasn't intentional, but are we able to reinvest the money in making up for the work that wasn't able to be done because we had staff vacancies? That's, yeah.
We can't, again, we have to go off the fiscal year, so we can't just say we're gonna,
Yeah.
I couldn't hire 1 staff last year, so I'm gonna hire 2. We can't do something like that. So again, the money procedurally goes back into the general fund and we start the whole process over again. But I think what we're trying to discuss today, and we'll go over some of that, is to try to make sure that we're, I guess, in essence, making our budget more performance related in terms of trying to make sure it's meeting those goals and objectives. We're always gonna have vacancies though, and unfortunately we can't, I guess, double down to be the way I say it.
That's just why I wonder what the percentage was. So it's about a third, right? I mean,
I would say, yeah.
Yep.
That'd be
Okay.
about that, yeah.
Okay, Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just so everyone knows, in finance, Steve and Ken, we've had some discussions. They're doing some extra work with the different departments to make sure that I think you guys are talking about maybe changing their methodology in which they are looking at their budgets so that it's a little more true year to year.
Yeah.
Yep, we're gonna get
We're
into
gonna
that
get it
with
right
one
now,
final
yeah.
slide
Yep,
yet, but
yep.
yep, we'll cover that.
So if there's no more questions,
Wait, there is Supervisor Engel.
Oh, yep. Jumping in.
So as, back at the budget meeting, I asked for a report. Is this the report?
This is the report, yes.
Okay, then it's wrong. I would like to respectfully request for my 1 employee a budget to actual, so at least I can take a look at it personally, because I asked for some departments, and you just said earlier that you're not gonna do that. So I asked to see the sub-departments, and I wish I could get that, please. In other words, no different than the reports we see all during the budgeting cycle, but I want to see the end of years. Give me the
So do you want-
unofficial,
you
I
want-
don't care.
You want to see every department? Is that what you want?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what I
can
had
provide that.
requested, was every department and the subcategories in those departments, the same fields we look at when we go through the budgeting cycle. I wanted to take this as a snapshot in time for me to understand the numbers you explained at the budgeting meeting and
Yep.
the numbers that I could see.
We can provide that because that's actually part of the budget process they're going through, so.
I understand that.
Yep.
That's what I asked for, but it would have been more concise, right? It was much more narrowed down, briefer report, but I'm not getting that, so I'm asking for it.
Okay.
Okay, yep. you're
I'll break it out.
Okay, you want to continue, Steve?
Yep. So with the strong closeout in 2024, what is the impact that we have for our 27, our 26 and 27 budgets? As you recall from our budget retreat in April of this year, we projected for 2026 that we were going to be at about 1.2 million over our tax levy limit. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to increase our interest revenue by by additional $1 million. So from we budgeted 2.2 in 2025. We're going to increase that to 3.2 million in 2026. So then that remains, so that takes care of 1 million out of that 1.2. So now we're going to be the $200,000 shortfall. We're going to address through to the departments so that they accurately budget their revenues and expenditures. As Jeff said, that when we had our department head meeting, we talked about our budgeting, and we asked departments to look at like at least 2 to 3 years of actuals of revenues and expenditures and budget off of that, not budget off of, say, okay, I budgeted this in revenues and kind of carry that forward, or I budgeted X amount in expenses. I know there's going to be a % increase because of cost or whatever, or inflation. Instead of doing off of budget numbers, you're going to look at actual numbers in that. And then again, we're having departments continue their operational efficiencies. Now for the 2027 budget, we're going to look at the various priorities and strategies that we did talk about at our budget retreat, and to start incorporating them in our 2027 budget. So if there's any other questions regarding that.
Okay, Supervisor Miller.
Again, in finance, that $1 million is going to help us correct the budget deficiencies for this next fiscal year.
Yeah.
Doesn't solve the problem ongoing. We still need, as we discussed in finance, we need to continue to have the departments become far more efficient, because you cannot rely on this one-time fund to come in each year.
Exactly.
So just for reiterate, so again, when we talk about it, finance, so again, so we're having the departments do this year, we feel pretty comfortable with them, again, adjusting revenues, especially at some of those areas, but then also reviewing their budget. We should be able to get the budget really close to balancing. Then for next year, we actually gave them numbers, projecting increases in wages for staff to say, okay, this is what your cut going forward for 27 is going to be. So what we're doing is we're going to take a whole year to go through that process. So again, we talked about the retreat, whether we have to adjust programming, look at positions when they come vacant, we're not do a freeze, but say, is that strategically where you're going with your operations in terms of services and everything related to it to fill that position, or do we adjust? So we're going to try to, in essence, again, not react, but plan into 2027 going forward. So I think, again, with that process, we should be, again, there'll still be some difficult decisions that we have to face as a county board, but I think it puts us in a better position to anticipate and start planning for those going forward.
Okay, I'm sorry, Todd.
Yep, just quickly, thank you, Steve, for the clarity of your answers and providing this information. I really, really appreciate that. I feel very, very comfortable with you at the helm of our financial situation, and this is a better problem than what a lot of counties have. So
definitely,
albeit we shouldn't look at this as bad news, it's truing things up. So thank you for the clarity of the information and your answers.
Okay, don't believe we have anything under pending business or updates. We'll move on to resolutions. Resolution 2025-53. Supervisor Combs.
I move to adopt resolution number 2025-53, recognizing Supervisor Patrick Voigt in service to the county board. To the Door County Board of Supervisors, whereas Patrick Voigt was duly elected to the Door County Board of Supervisors in April 2024 and served through June 5, 2025. And whereas Supervisor Voigt represented Supervisory District 19, encompassing the town of Bailey's Harbor, Ward 3, town of Liberty Grove, Ward 1, Village of Ephraim, Ward 2, and Village of Sister Bay, Ward 1. And whereas during his tenure, Supervisor Voigt served on Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, Land Conservation Committee, and Land Information Council. Now therefore be it resolved that the Door County Board of Supervisors assembled this 24th day of June 2025 extends to Patrick Voigt our sincere thanks and appreciation for his service to the people of Door County, and wish him the best in his future endeavors.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Combs, a second by Supervisor Shaw. All in favor of approval signify by aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries. Resolution 2025-54. Roy,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve resolution number 2025-54, license agreement of real property for public park purposes. At this time, I'd like to call on our department manager, Wayne Spreca, to explain this whole program.
Good morning. Thank you, Roy. So just, I guess, a little bit of background. This is probably about 18 months ago when the Army Corps of Engineers approached us. Thanks for bringing that up, Ken. I appreciate it. And so essentially, it's in the packet, the properties that are marked in red are the two properties that the Army Corps of Engineers had asked us to support them essentially and take over the management of those two properties. So if people have been there and visited, you'll see it's kind of in disrepair. There's nothing major wrong. We just want to, you know, help maintain some mowing on some trails, improve some benches, improve the parking lots, put up some signs and rules that'll kind of dictate what people can and can't do there. So it's federal property. It'll remain federal property, but it'll come under our Chapter 12 rules and ordinance that we can help to maintain and kind of, I don't want to say keep the peace, but, you know, keep it more as a park property. So we invest in, you know, some local properties around the county at essentially no cost. Our cost is really going to be our labor. So some of the questions that come up is how do we pay for those improvements? So we're going to see grants. There's some annual CCA grants that we can get some funds out of. We have some controlling interests with DSIST as a partner. And I pulled up the land trust piece and wanted to show that in green. So how they kind of affect and work with us too, as far as invasive species go. So in the packet, in my memo, you'll see there's a number of different invasive species that we've identified that we would target through DSIS with the permission of the Army Corps and how we manage that property. It's important, I think, to Door County, right? Without the canal, we wouldn't be where we are today, right? I think we all recognize that lumber and stone and industry was really driven by the creation and the digging of the canal and the history that goes with it. So, you know, I think it's good for us as a county parks, and these are the kinds of properties that we seek out: adjacencies to water, accessibility, improving accessibility to people, and grants that we can seek are much easier to seek if they're associated with water and flyways for flora and fauna. So there's a lot of reasons why we want to bring this into our inventory. And I think I've named a few of them, and maybe there's some questions as to some other ones. But we've worked the last 18 months. Initially, they brought us a lease, and Corps Council and I took a look at that. I want to say it was probably 30 pages long. It's just too much to stomach really for us. And so we've had a lot of discussions and phone calls with the Army Corps and their legal counsel and their team as to how do we get to an agreement that's less cumbersome on the county. And so the license agreement was really a natural fit for us, where we identify a few key basic points in one paragraph in that license. And those are the things that we would essentially focus on for the property. So a little background on how we got there, and this is where we're at today. Because it's a 5-year agreement, it comes to the full county board, so that we understand the severity of the situation, I guess, if you will. And then after the first 5 years, we'd see how we move it forward if we're successful.
Wayne, would you explain the wall now? That's not our problem.
Yeah, so physical infrastructure, and it's specific in that license agreement. We are not responsible for any of that. The only things are the things that are in my memo, and really just to maintain the property in kind as it is. So there's an opportunity that we can develop and build bathrooms and do all that stuff. But I think that's a long way down the road, and it's a lot of federal permits and things like that. That's not the kind of thing we're talking about at all. So
So the interest in the infrastructure and the shipping canal and the seawalls and all the aids to navigation, I think that's what you kind of referred to. The idea that the Army Corps actually stores boulder stone and shoulder stone for the Great Lakes region. That's all the Army Corps' interest, and they maintain and take care of that. So if anyone's been there recently, you'll see on the north side, they've cut back a pretty significant strip right along the wall so that you can, you can actually get to the water. So that's all they're doing. They manage and control their land the way they're going to control it. The only thing we want to do is that smaller piece of, taking care and making it a little bit better park.
Okay. Yeah, I got you up first, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wayne, thanks for this update. I think just two brief comments. One is having done some boat nerding to watch the ships come in the spring, there are some areas where you have the overbrush that would go over the steel piling. And if you're not careful, if you're walking, you're thinking you're going through brush, and before you know it, you're in the water. So I raised my concern about potential liability. And are you stating now that they basically cleared that brush back so there's a clear, visible knowledge that where the steel piling is, so that's less of a hazard?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're talking about the north side,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
Okay.
There's 30 feet, 20 feet, 25, 30 feet.
That they cleared back?
Gone.
Wow.
Yep. So they've come through with their rushers and mowers, and it's all mulched in, and of course it'll grow back over time. And I want to say in the 90s, when I was first associated with the property and living at the canal station, those trees were all there. So that's never happened that I've known of. Maybe some other folks have been around much longer than I. The improvements that have happened is they developed the seawall more on the north side where it was all wood pilings. And remember, there's probably a third of that canal wall that was all wood pilings, and on the backside it's wetlands, and it's actually marked as wetlands. And so where the blue rail is on the south side, it's very easy, to walk to and access, and it's completely accessible ADA wise from the parking lot on what I call the south side. But to your question, it's all gone. You could absolutely walk there without hesitation.
Okay, so that I think mitigates the liability risk for someone not
Yeah, so-
unwittingly knowing where the edge is.
And that's more, and I know it's just as much for council's question, but we fall into that recreational immunity for county parks. So there isn't a liability per se there. I think where a liability would come is if we would do something that we think is proactive and put life rings there, and then for some reason it's in disrepair. Now we're liable because someone went and vandalized it. But so if we never put it there, we're probably better off.
Okay, great. And then my other follow-up is just from a future planning perspective. I know, given some of the property that the town of Sturgeon Bay has, I know there's been some talk with Tim in your department about actually creating a trail that kind of replicates, provides education, for the actual portage trail, from Lake Michigan before the canal existed. So is there potential where this might actually help in that kind of potential planning?
I haven't been
that-
involved in any trail conversations. So at this point, we have no planned development of trails on the property on behalf of the Army Corps, because those would be permissions we have to seek from them. But right now, we don't have any discussion of that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Boltman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Remind me again, so this is something that the Army Corps basically asked us to do this? They came to us?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, it seems to me like the federal government doesn't want to deal with this, so they're just dumping it on us. Like, I know I'm saying that harshly, but that's kind of, I'm really struggling with this. It's great, but like this, I feel like this isn't our responsibility. If it goes to shit, then the federal government's on the hook. Like, why do we care? I'm kind of being devil's advocate here, but like, I know you're like, oh, we don't have to do that much to it, but like, you have a whole list of repairs, that's staff time, that's equipment. Like, where's this money coming from? If the feds are gonna want us to take care of it, then where's the purse to manage it? I don't think we should be doing this without the purse to manage it.
Yes, and thanks for the question. I can absolutely appreciate that. The goal really is to improve our local infrastructure for our local citizens, right? So, so the Army Corps has a model of this across the country, right? They don't receive fundings to do the things that they want to do. So locally here, there is a manager out of, it's Oshkosh or Appleton. I don't remember where he lives. So he kind of oversees all the federal properties. So right now he brings his personal lawnmower up twice a year and mows some grass, right? Unsustainable. It's not realistic. So we have some resources, we have some personnel that we can do what I call de minimis maintenance, right? I'm not turning this into, a world-class soccer field like we have at John Miles, where we fertilize and do all the stuff and water and bathroom, right? We just want to do, we can clean up some trash. We can take care of some local properties that are in our local community. That's really where we come at it from a park perspective.
If I could just add also too, it's been the model the Corps has been trying to do, because again, you can say it's a federal responsibility, but the Army Corps through the entire Fox Valley, all the way there, all their shipping things have been trying to work with the local communities and trying to make the property an asset versus a detriment. So again, I think when they first had this conversation 18 months ago, we brought it to the committee, it was that conversation. It's like, well, it's not like we're trying to turn our back to it, but they're saying, hey, we think this is an asset. Are you guys interested in partnering with us to make it to maintain it as a valuable asset versus it just, I mean, they could just let it go and, let the trails go and have no access to the water, that type of thing. So that's the other alternative. So really, we talked about it. Again, it's very minimal in terms of what we think would be maintenance, but you're talking about, I don't know, what, 2,000 feet of technically water frontage that it would be available to the public to use as an asset, and we can actually market it as our county park system. And so from that standpoint, that's why we're bringing it here. I concur with you on what you're saying, but the thing that makes me feel a little more comfortable is obviously the main responsibilities and where the big expenses are, the retaining walls, all that stuff. That's where they want to focus their funds and their maintenance. It's just not on the trail system or park benches and those types of things. So it's one of those things we have to negotiate that through, and that's what we brought forward for you to consider.
The model is very similar to the Anape Trail, right? With the trailhead here, and we go all the way to the county line. That's all state property. We maintain that and take care of that on behalf of the state of Wisconsin. We don't get funding unless I put in for maintenance requests or grants in order to take care of that. That all comes from our department. It wasn't until recent years that we added a line item within the budget to help maintain that trail into the gem that it is. And people come to respect, and they come here to see that. They come and spend room tax dollars and buy things and do all the stuff, right, that we want to look to. And it's passive revenue, right, through the system. And honestly, this isn't much different. And I kind of focused the resolution based on our previous history of developing and receiving the Anape Trail. That went through some yeses and nos through county boards, and eventually we have what we have today. So really, that's really the better model. I think that you can understand how and appreciate how that's developed.
Thank you for the information. I mean, no doubt, this is an asset, and it brings people, and people spend money and they appreciate it. And whether we're locals or visitors is a great thing. Again, my point is, like, this is, the federal government. I really struggle calling this a partnership. This is not a partnership. This is, hey, do my dirty work for me. Right. So, I mean, I just want that to be kind of, and I mean, I want nothing more than a robust parks department and a park system. So, I mean, then we need to budget what we need to do, for an extra person, for the extra mower, for the extra equipment, whatever, we need to make sure that we're budgeting for that. And we as a board need to support this in a way that, doesn't diminish our other parks. So thank you.
I guess I'd make a comment to that as well, Bob. I think it's important that, you're suggesting grants and department funds. So we need to be aware that if it's an increase in those funds to do this, and you said, maybe down the road, there might be bathrooms or something. We have to be very cautious not to create another park there, go to an extent above a 5-year lease. We don't want to be investing. I wouldn't think too much into that. Maybe some maintenance, but Todd? I thought you were. Okay, Bud, I'm sorry.
Can you comment on dredging in the canal?
Again, not our responsibility.
Do they dredge often or?
I don't think the canal itself has been dredged maybe since it was built. It's self-dredging actually. So the dredging occurs at the mouth between the pier heads, and the dredging occurs in the inner bay between the Bayview Bridge and the canal itself. So and I just, because I know I have a lot of personal experience, it self-dredges. So the current's moving one way, it pushes out, and moves the other way, it pushes out. And so the controlling depth of 18 feet has been there since it was built. So that's not an issue. And it would be the Army Corps' issue anyway in their navigational, it's a federal navigable water, right? That nothing to do with the county. And that's where we got away from the lease and all of a lot of very cumbersome language that you talk about, right? And that's where I had a lot of heartburn and a lot of rub with their corporate councils, and I don't want to say fighting. We had a lot of discussions that were very active into how we do not want to be on the hook for everything associated with the infrastructure of this property. And so that's how we got to where we are today.
Okay, Supervisor Gullickson.
Yeah, I was going to comment on exactly what's been said here, but this has the potential to be a tremendous asset from an economic perspective to Door County as a whole, because somebody in the boat world nerd, people are going to watch this. I mean, what do? They come to Sturgeon Bay to watch the ships. This is a perfect spot now without having to risk them falling in the canal, and they can see the canal. So I think this is a tremendous thing. It's no different than the concept that we did with the park in Bailey's Harbor on the highway with the state for the restrooms. This is just a bigger scale. So it's good kudos.
Okay, Supervisor Thais.
Okay. So seasonal? Is this seasonal or is this going to be open?
We'll operate it just as a park all year.
Okay, so I mean, I would surmise, and you're talking about snow removal, salting, and things like that. I would caution against that.
It's gravel driveways, so it's a
But
run
like
through with a plow and.
But along the piers or none of that, there's no snow removal plan or any of that?
No.
Okay, all right. And then we maintain the loadout. There's an area down there where spoils and dredges and.
We do not.
But that survives, right? That doesn't go away.
Oh, yes, yep, yeah, those are, so you're talking about where they take dredge spoils off? Yeah, so that's actually an easement. It would be in that slide with the green with the land trust. That's an easement through the land trust land, believe it or not. It's a very small sliver for the Army Corps of Engineers, and that's where all the storage of stone is. So if there's a catastrophic failure somewhere in northeast or the northern Lake Michigan, they have these supplies to make these big repairs. The Army Corps does.
And emergency dredging, so on and so forth. So I'm on the fence on this. I really hear what Bob is saying. And I know what the tendency is, and this chapter may not play out for this board. It'd probably be in future boards, but I would bet in years to come, we're going to have a line item that says something about maintaining that. And I do think we have a hell of a lot of assets in this county as it is. And Joel is right. I mean, there is a bunch of boat nerds that chase boats around and have access to the waterfront. So I just hate to see I would rather the county not bear much of any cost of this moving forward. We got enough to deal with.
Supervisor Engel.
I'd like to echo the comments to the previous board members in the sense that I'm very tolerant of having a connection to the property for the obvious reasons, but I'm also not so tolerant of spending any real monies. In other words, suddenly turning the gravel parking lot into a blacktop parking lot, which drives other issues, all those kinds of things, bathrooms, none of that. The other question really is, does the Army Corps own any other land in Door County that might be something that
wouldn't
travel the same direction?
I wouldn't research anything like that.
You're not aware of it?
Yeah,
That's what I'm getting at.
not really.
Are
in
you,
my wheelhouse.
so are you aware of whether or not the county?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, see, no other requests for comments. We do have the motion by Supervisor Raw Engelbert, a second by Supervisor Shaw, excuse me, to approve the license agreement for the real property for public park purposes. All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. The next resolution, the transfer of non-budgeted funds for the clerk of courts. Joel, would you introduce that, please?
What's your number, 58 here?
55.
55. Oh, the hearing. Yeah, this is reading requested. I thought it was finance committee doing this, sorry. So I wasn't on it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, that's why I
I'm
wasn't
wrong. I.
Gets you guys confused.
Yeah. Okay, I am on the wrong one, yes, okay. The resolution 55, and that would be Jeff, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would bring forward a motion to approve resolution 91.
I'm sorry, it turned off. I had it on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to bring forward a motion to approve resolution 2025-55, which is a transfer of non-budgeted funds courts for the hearing assistant amount of 30,000, and I'd move to approve this resolution. These funds would be needed to get the courthouse compliance with ADA. Unfortunately, they were not part of the original project scope, and hence has brought forward in this fashion.
Okay, any questions on Mr. Enigal?
So an individual that seems to work in the ADA world an awful lot. Recently, we've had quite a few forgotten or missed expenditures in projects. How do we miss an ADA requirement? That's a pretty obvious one since the 80s.
And this one, it was the original scope of the work was not, I guess, not intended to include, because we did actually have hearing loop equipment there. But in the meantime, since that happened, we had one of the rooms, actually the equipment fail. And again, since we're updating all the equipment, the decision was made to update all the rooms to include the same equipment as the process for it. So again,
So it really wasn't a forget so much as an expectation of existing ADA qualifiable equipment was going to continue to function. And during the process, things changed.
correct. And obviously too, some of the sharing of that equipment was thought, especially for the third courtroom. And then obviously that part of that equipment failed. So that's why we did not want to pursue that option. And this is why it's before you.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
no,
Again, since this was on budget, it does require 2/3 vote.
okay. We're working with Ken and trying to be very patient with Barb.
Okay.
No, she's doing a good job. Okay.
So
Okay.
be patient, I gotta get
Okay.
everything in here.
So we had a motion and a second then to approve that resolution. Use your voter board, please. And that passes with a vote of 20 yes and 1 absent or the void position open. Okay, resolution, okay,
We in 56.
56. 56 is next, yes. Okay, resolution 2025-56, the compensation structure. Supervisor Thase.
Thank you, Chairman Engelbert. I'd like to move to approve resolution 2025-56, which deals with the Door County compensation structure, as the resolution does detail. Looking at a 3% cost of living increase, July 6, 2025 is an effective date, and then also a 1.5% bonus. I guess basically based on what the salary would have been for the year, and maybe our administrator can speak a little bit more to that if there's questions about how that bonus is going to be calculated. And these are budgeted funds. So we talked at the admin committee meeting extensively about this, and I believe it was unanimously approved. And one of the things that we talked about is not wanting to set up ourselves, moving forward as an expectation that there are bonuses. This is kind of being paid out because of the delay in getting this increased compensation out. So Ken, if you want to add to that, feel free.
Sure. Actually, I thought you did an excellent job, but again, as Todd has mentioned in those phases, he covered each one. So there is actually there's two parts, just to clarify. We actually age the plan, and part of the recommendation is that then the employees also will move in the plan the equivalent amount, right? So what we do is there's two parts when we look at our wage plan. Isn't current within the market, independent of the employees. And based off the recommendations from our consultants, our plan needs to age 3%. But then also what we had discussed is that we're enabling on July 6th, the employees to also experience that 3% increase. And then again, the 1.5% bonus, which you can see is based off their base wage prior to the cost of living increase. So we'll implement in essence, logistically implement the 1.5% bonus on what their current wage is right now. We'll age the plan and have that effective on July 6th with their wages moving forward.
Okay, any questions regarding the plan? Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Thais, a second by Supervisor Roy Engelbert to approve the compensation structure plan. I think we have to go to the voting part on that. Correct? No?
This budget is fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to go to, unless we would have a no vote.
Okay.
We can do it by voice.
Okay, voice vote then. All in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. That carries. Okay. The next resolution 2025-57. Todd, would you handle that one also, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve resolution 2025-57, and it deals with the request. This would be the County of Door requesting that Wisconsin State Legislators plat.
Like back on.
Guess this is advisory only, and we've had the ability to view similar resolutions from other counties, and a few folks within the admin committee felt that this was a worthwhile cause, and corporate counsel did some research and could provide more detail, I guess, if required.
Okay, Sean, yeah, would you give some background? It was a request that came through from Winnebago County. I think,
Good morning, everyone. It's still morning. So yes, Winnebago County brought forward a resolution that they passed at their county that was forwarded to all counties. When this came before the county, it was concluded that, this may be a resolution that Door County would also like to sponsor or to enact its own ordinance. So what I did is I based the resolution before you largely off of Winnebago counties. I wasn't able to independently verify all the information Winnebago has. I did some of my own research using Realtors Association information they put out on housing, U.S. Census Bureau. That information is what you see in the resolution there. The supporting documents are attached. In addition, if you look at page 47 of the agenda packet, there was a request from at the county board level last time this came through to look at how does this impact Door County corporate ownership of residential real estate in the county. Door County has 43,441 real estate parcels. When assessors are valuing properties, they assign a class. So we looked at the residential class of property. That narrows down the parcels to 29,712 parcels. Of that amount, the total residential class parcels in 2025, which is admittedly a little bit deceiving because it's end of 24 data. So it would be January 1st, this is accurate. There were 173 residential class parcels held by corporations. Of those 173, when I look through the ownership of the parcels, there are entities such as the Ridges, the Peninsula Gun Club, the Clearing, Washington Island Ferry Line, Brussels Lions Club. So not private equity groups buying residential properties for rental or whatever, short-term rental. So that there are a large number or a significant number of properties that may be staff housing, may be a residential property that's used by a club. I broke it down further because when you're talking about entity ownership, it's not just corporations. There are limited liability companies, partnerships, trusts. So I broke those down. You can see limited liability companies. There are a little over 2,000 parcels with the residential class. Partnerships have 30. Trusts have 7,587 parcels. At admin, there was a request to also look at vacant land. What about corporate ownership of vacant land? So if you turn to page 48, that's where I break that down. 12,435 parcels without improvements on them. So that's how we did, that's what we classified as vacant land. Of that, the end of 24, beginning of 25, there were 88 parcels in corporate ownership. So even though the issue raised by Winnebago County of private equity corporations purchasing residential real estate or real estate in general in the county, the numbers, at least at this point, from what I can see, don't bear a significant issue. It doesn't mean that it isn't happening. It doesn't mean in the future it won't happen further. Also, I want to bring to the board's attention that the resolution put out by Winnebago County, the resolution before you today, is limited to corporations. As I alluded to, there's a number of entity form of ownership. If I was a private equity group and there was a state level law that says corporations can't own real estate, I'd spin off a limited liability company. I'd put it in a real estate trust. So it's going to be very hard. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't push this to the state to be creative and come up with something to address a potential problem. But it's going to be very difficult to close all those loopholes and really prevent entities buying up residential real estate. The fear being they have tremendous amount of funds. They can drive up the costs in the county and make home rental, home ownership unaffordable. In the resolution, you could see there was Wisconsin Realtors Association. In May of 2025, the median sale price of residential real estate was a little over $442,000. Based on census data, so 2023 dollars, the median household income in the county was almost 72,000. So as we know, home affordability in Door County is an issue. Private equity purchases of real estate may be exacerbating that problem. The numbers that I see, it's not a large issue, but it could be an issue. So if there's questions, I'm happy to answer whatever questions the board has.
Okay, Nissa.
Thank you. So because of owning rentals and stuff, I've paid attention to this happening just nationally. I've watched a bunch of documentaries on it. I mean, for the past couple of years, I paid attention just more out of curiosity than anything. Like you said, it's not really something that's happening here. It's happening more in bigger cities where corporations will buy up, let's say, apartment buildings, and they'll buy up many of them throughout areas of a certain city, and then they move on to next city, do the same thing, and keep going. Is it an issue nationally? I would say more populated areas, possibly, yeah. Is it an issue rurally? Not really. Will it be an issue rurally? Like you said, who knows? That being said, the money's not there for them rurally.
What I would suspect, and I obviously have no way to know this, is where we're seeing this problem take place is individual or smaller scale purchases of residential properties for short-term rentals. And likely those are being LLCs. They wouldn't be corporations. And they're establishing one LLC for each parcel they buy. It's very simple to form an LLC. There's really no...
The form online and you have one basically.
So by saying I don't, the issue isn't there, I don't know that it's with corporate ownership. I think it's just the purchase of homes for rental, for revenue generating purposes in this county if there is an issue.
Supervisor Hancock.
Just about, I guess I feel it's a known history of our county is that parents leave property to their children, be it second home, third home, second, third generation. So it would be interesting to at least know, like, the largest number is trusts, which isn't a limited liability. So in a trust, if you were renting that out through short-term rental, your trust would be liable, which is why people do LLCs, right? So that an individual family isn't liable if it's rented and there's an accident or a problem on the property. So I'm just trying to kind of gain that, like, if the majority of them are through trusts, then that's like an inheritance, right? Of property versus like a short-term rental agreement would maybe be linked more to an LLC because you're trying to limit your liability to your personal finances, right? Or
Yes and no. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah,
I would have to
thank you.
really dig down into the data. I imagine
Yeah.
most of those trusts are families, as you alluded to, owning the property, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be. I mean, there can be real estate trusts where groups are in a trust format acquiring a massive amount of property and putting them into this trust. You know, and it could be layers of, but it gets complicated. But yes, I mean, that 7,000 or what number, whatever it was, I imagine many of those are just normal ownership, like you said, family inheritance, or the family sets up a trust to dispose of their property when they would pass away, to keep it private, to, you know, keep it out of the registered probate's office. So there's a lot of reasons to do a trust outside of, you know, entity ownership for revenue generating purposes.
Okay, Supervisor Boltman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank Corp Counsel for diving in and spending some time with this. I think it was a valuable use of your time. Personally, and understanding some of the terminologies and like what are the, what kind of, what those options are. Wherever this goes, state, who knows? But again, we know that housing is an issue, and I think just even having some of these numbers in front of us is really valuable, and maybe even gives us a baseline that in a couple of years we check in again or something like that. Thank you very much.
Okay, no further questions. We do have a motion by Supervisor Thais, a second by Supervisor Gauger to approve Resolution 2025-57. All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Do you wish to be so recorded? Yes, okay, then why don't we go to the voter board and have a, okay. Okay, would it be easier if I just asked for a show of hands?
I think so, because I already.
Okay. Okay. Could we just have a show of hands, please? All those in favors? Okay. And those opposed? Yeah, it might be easier that way. Okay.
So
We have
the-
three nays. Supervisor Vogel,
Yes.
Enigal, Fisher, Gudlickson. Okay. Okay, we'll do the final resolution and then we're going to take a break as requested. Okay.
Let me get that resolution before we call them.
The one I'm referring to is then 2025-58. And that would be Mr. Gudlickson in a second. Glad Barb is catching up on.
Okay, so Gudlickson motion.
Okay, to introduce, please.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2025-58, which is approval of Wisconsin Deflection Initiative Grant increase to the Door County Sheriff's Office. I believe the chief deputy is here, but in essence, what it says is they're willing to give us more money than the grant originally was, from an additional $20,000 from the Wisconsin Department of Justice. So we kind of got to take it, I guess.
Yeah. Again, this didn't fit the timeline of our meetings, so
yeah,
it was requested that I sponsor the resolution. Any questions of Chief Deputy?
Ongoing diversion grants, we've been getting these for forever, so it's nothing
Mhm.
new.
Any questions from anyone? If not, we have the motion by Gunlickson, second by Fisher to approve the deflection grant. All in favor signify by aye, or be sure. Okay, just a simple majority vote. Okay, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That carries by voice vote. Okay, could we take I guess, a 10-minute break before we get into the